Stop ghosting. My friend, what if how you exit a relationship impacted the person that you exited the relationship with for the rest of their life? Do you know statistics tell us that 76% of people who were ghosted report long-term emotional damage from the ghosting, like trust issues and a lot of self-doubt. You see, what happens is when you ghost someone, right? Ghosting someone activates the same regions of the brain as physical pain does. And it prolongs the healing process because nobody got closure, because ghosting leaves a lot of emotional open loops. And here's the truth about open loops. The human mind hates open loops. So it tends to fill in those open loops with negative information. So when you ghost someone, even if they didn't do anything horrifically wrong to you, you just chose not to have a difficult conversation. We talked about that in a completely separate video, so make sure you watch our other video on having difficult conversations. But instead of having a difficult but necessary conversation with them, or instead of setting better boundaries with them, you decide to ghost them. When you do that, you leave tremendous amounts of emotional damage for that person to handle. Now, before I do a deep dive on this whole ghosting, because I don't want y'all to drag me in the comments, right? I am not talking about ghosting someone who is physically abusing you or emotionally abusing you or putting you through something where your life is in danger, right? Or someone has just done something very foul or negative, whether it's physical, emotional violence or cheating or any extreme case. I'm not talking about that. If you ghosted someone to remove yourself from an extremely toxic or violent, harmful situation where your life was in danger, I'm not talking about that. This is ghosting because you're afraid to confront the person and say what you really need to say. And so I want to challenge every one of you all who have ghosting tendencies. I'm gonna give you 4 better ways to end a relationship instead of ghosting them. Let's jump right in. Number 1, be direct and be gentle. Be direct, but also be gentle. So you could say this: I feel like our time in this relationship has expired, and I feel like we're no longer aligned in our goals and aspirations for a relationship together. Does that make sense? Notice how I said what I said. I didn't say it was anybody's fault. I didn't point fingers. I didn't point blame. All I said was, I feel statements, okay? I feel like we are no longer aligned and we're no longer going in the same direction. And this relationship no longer serves me in the capacity that I ideally hoped that it would. So I need us to move on. I need to remove myself from this relationship. So step number 1, be direct, but be gentle. Do it in a loving way, right? Because when you say, hey, this just doesn't align anymore, even though a person might not agree with you, you still have to stand in your truth. And if that's your truth, that's your truth. But say it, be direct and be gentle, because you care about this person and you care about them going on their own healing journey without you, right? So be gentle, but be direct. I no longer feel like we're aligned. And just be honest and say it. And then if the person asks to explain why, give them a couple of reasons why you no longer feel like you guys are aligned. And I guarantee you, this is probably not the first time y'all have had this conversation. Does that make sense? 9 times out of 10, people need to hear things 4 or 5 times before they really get it. And sometimes, unfortunately, in relationships, it takes the point of almost breaking up for a person to really take you seriously. So you could say something like, listen, we've had this conversation 6, 7 times, and I feel like there's still no change, there's still no growth, there's still no corrected behavior, there's still no behavior modification. You're still doing the same thing. We talk about it, but your actions are still exactly the same. And that just doesn't serve me, and it doesn't serve the relationship that I'm looking for any longer. So I feel like we're no longer aligned. Does that make sense? So that's step 1. Step 2, match their style of communication. So if you're going to break up with someone or you're going to end things without ghosting them, determine what their primary communication style is. So in other words, if you all's primary communication between you all's relationship dynamic was texting, if that was the majority of what y'all did was text or WhatsApp or video chat or in-person conversations, or conversations while you walked around the neighborhood, or conversations when you left the gym, or conversations at the Starbucks, or fill in the blank, whatever mode, whatever modality you all predominantly use to have conversations, important conversations, necessary conversations, conversations that literally help to determine the viability of the relationship, whatever those conversations were and however they happened, match the style of the communication when it's time to end the relationship. So you might say, okay, hey, we always go to this special park to have necessary conversations. Well, I'm bringing you to the park because this conversation is about us moving on independently. This conversation is about us uncoupling. Does that make sense? So match the style of communication in terms of where you all traditionally go to have necessary conversations. Now, I don't recommend that anybody break up over text, but if that was the way you all communicated the entire time, then hey, you're just matching the energy that y'all have had the whole relationship. But I would prefer for you to be man and woman enough to have an in-person, face-to-face conversation, because this might be the last time you ever see this person again. You just never know. Does that make sense? So that's number 2. Number 3, validate the good in the relationship. I want you to find a way to find something good about so for example, let's say you guys were dating for 2 years and it's no longer aligned. Hey, I know we've been dating for 2 years and I've learned a lot of great things about technology. You taught me so many great things about technology. We went on several great trips together and I saw places I'd never saw before, so I'm grateful to you for that. And how you supported me when my mom was going through a challenging time for those couple of months, I will never forget how you were there with me to hold my hand through that season. So I'm so grateful to you. Validate the good. Does that make sense? Affirm for the person what was great about that. When we first met, I really had a lot of confidence issues, but thank you for constantly complimenting me, telling me how beautiful and handsome I was, telling me how great a physical shape I was in spite of the fact that I was trying to lose weight. Thank you for all those things that you did to affirm and validate me, right? What that does, when you validate the good in another person, even as you're breaking up with them, what it does is it activates the reward center in their brain. And it says, I did this right, I did that right. And it allows that person to check off a couple things to continue to do correctly as they move forward. But if all you say is, we're no longer aligned, now the person's like, why are we no longer aligned? Open loops. Did I do anything? Was any of it real? Did they ever love me? Did they ever care? All the stuff, right? They tend to go into all the things because you didn't do a good job of ending the relationship. Isn't it amazing? I think this is amazing to me. I'm not a dating coach and I'm not a relationship expert, but I've learned a couple things about healing. And I think it's amazing to me how there's a zillion videos on how to get into relationships, how to pick up people at bars, how to pick up people at clubs, how to pick up people at gyms, how to create your own pickup lines, right? There's all these things about how to get into it, but there's not a lot of teaching about how to exit it correctly so that both people or whoever was involved in the dynamic can move on and heal and start something new in a better, more healed state. Does that make sense? So what I'm asking you to do is, if you cared about this person and if they cared about you and you're just no longer aligned, then give that person an exit interview, metaphorically, right? Let them know a couple things. Hey, as you go into your next relationship, I really want to encourage you to heal in this one specific area, because multiple times we had multiple arguments about money and finance, and I've never been in your life to take any money from you. But I know the person before me did steal a lot of money from you. And I feel like you're still struggling on your healing journey with that. So before you move on to somebody else, I would encourage you so that way you're not making them pay the same price I paid, and I never did anything derogatory to you financially. I would encourage you to maybe go to therapy and have some sessions around your financial woes about being in a romantic relationship. That's how you validate the good, even as you're saying goodbye. That's number 3. Number 4, be clear and direct. If it's over, say it's over. Don't say it's kind of over. Don't say it's a little bit over. Don't say it's over, but we can still be friends with benefits. Or it's over, but you can still come smash whenever you want. Or it's over, but no. Make a decision. Decision. The word decision comes from the same word of incision. Incision is to cut into something. Decision is to cut off something. When you make a decision, you cut off all other options. Does that make sense? If I make a decision, I'm gonna go to this university, I'm cutting off every other university that I could go to. If I make a decision that I'm gonna marry this person, I'm cutting off all other options of anybody else I would wanna marry. Does that make sense? So when you make a decision, be definitive about it. So be clear and direct, end it. Because vague breakups create what's called hope loops in the brain. I'm gonna say that again slower. Vague breakups that aren't clear. Oh, let's just take some time. Or let's just pause things for a little bit. What the hell does that even mean? Right, does that make sense? Be clear. Is it over? Are we done? Be clear about what it is and stand on your business. Stand 10 toes down on your decision. And be okay with the fact that that they're gonna have to move on and you're gonna have to move on. Because if you close the loop, but you use vague language to close the loop, yeah, I'm kind of done. I'm kind of done doesn't say I'm done. It's kind of over doesn't say it's over. We're broken up, but we still can kick it whenever we want. That's vague. And when it's vague, it creates what's called hope loops in the brain of the other person. So if I'm breaking up with you and I say, listen, I just don't feel like we're aligned anymore. But then I say, hey, girl, we can, kind of hang out whenever you want to hang out. Now she's like, okay, so we're breaking up from the way we've been traditionally doing this relationship, but we can hang out whenever we want to hang out. So now when she leaves that interaction with me, she's thinking, okay, well, maybe if we just hang out a few more times, it's gonna make him want to take me back. It creates a hope loop in the mind of the person. And that hope loop doesn't let that person actually put a bookend on the situation, grieve the loss of the relationship, heal from the grief, and then start something new. Does that make sense? So if you cared about the person to do all the things that you did for the person during the relationship, care enough to exit better. I'm gonna say that again, care enough to exit better. Have the difficult conversation. And if you need to learn how to have a difficult conversation, watch my video on how to have a difficult conversation. It's a fantastic video that teaches you how to have the necessary conversation, but be clear, right? Because number 5, closure is better than silence. Remember that, family. Closure is better than silence. Close it up, right? Let's say you had a broken leg and they went in and they sutured it all back together. They did all the things to get the bones back together and put all the screws in the cement and all that stuff. But then they didn't actually take the time to suture your skin back together on your leg. Yeah, they completed putting your bone back together, but they didn't close you up. There was still no closure. Does that make sense? So closure matters. Choose closure over silence. Choose closure over distance. Choose closure over not communicating. One of the first lessons that I learned about communication, because my undergraduate degree from Florida State is in communication. The first day of class, in our communication class, the first day of class in my basic communication 101 freshman year class, they said there's no such thing as not communicating. There's no such thing as not communicating. Even silence screams. Even distance screams. Even avoidance screams. No response is a response. Does that make sense, family? But choose good closure versus silence. My friend, have the necessary conversation, because guess what? It's gonna do good things for you. As you exit well, it's gonna bless you and it's gonna bless the person that you're exiting well from. So they can go on their healing journey and you can go on your healing journey as well. I hope that you've learned some powerful lessons. I need you to hit that like and subscribe, that notifications button. Let's go, baby. And then in the comments below, I want you to admit, are you a ghoster previously until this video? Have you been someone who tends to ghost people? Have you learned some things in this video that will help you to exit better? Have you learned some things in this video? And if so, which ones did you learn that you're gonna apply in order to close those hope loops so that people can literally move on with their lives and you can move on with your life? Does that make sense? I hope this video has blessed you. This is Dr. Delatorro. I can't wait to see you in the next one.